if anything, I can see that I'm not one of the more popular socks. So. I didn't come up with the title, Chuck came up with the title. What? I did, electronically. I haven't actually seen it in person yet. Yeah, I know. He told me, like, oh, we should catch up. This is so cool. Like, I'm joining OWASP and blah, 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 blah. So thank you for the tip. So I will find him. I hope so. I don't know. I got his phone number. I got his email. I said I'd see him here. You see him point out. So. Check, check. Whoa. Alrighty, thank you guys for spending part of your evening here instead of being out enjoying the snow. My name is Doug Wilson. I'm here to talk about our new broken web application project. So a little bit about me. I've been an IT geek and the security guy at a lot of places I've been for about 10 years now. I started at a local DC web startup, and about 4 days into my job, an IIS box got hacked and nobody knew what to do about it. And I've kind of been stuck with a security role ever since then. My main focus has been incident response. Also do a lot of stuff with multi-tiered web application architecture, or at least I used to. But ultimately, what I really like doing is working with different groups and trying to achieve better security by making people work together. Little blurb here about my employer, currently working for Mandiant. They're helping sponsor this project. They're based out of Old Town Alexandria, mainly focused on incident response and forensics. They also do proactive assessment research, training at Black Hat and for clients. Commercial, federal, et cetera. We have a Mandiant intelligent response product, which is kind of cool. It's like a force multiplier for incident response. But anyhow, I do a couple things in the DC area. I'm the co-chair of the OWASP Washington DC chapter, organized a CapSec DC happy hour, also organized an application security conference in DC this past November, hoping to do that again this year. So I don't know if a lot of people have heard about OWASP. If you haven't, it's the Open Web Application Security Project. It's one of the bigger names in application security. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. If you are new to web application security, the OWASP Top 10 is probably the first place you want to start at. You can go to OWASP.org, look around. There's tons of stuff here that I will leave till questions if you really want to know about any of this stuff here. But say you are new, you want to learn about web application security. Not everybody can start out as elite ninja. Not everybody's a hacker from the cradle. And a lot of people don't start out in web application security. I know a lot of people who do a lot of network security that have recently gotten into web application security, whether they like it or not. Realistically, you can read books, you could go online, but you learn best by doing. And there should be stuff out on the internet about this, right? Well, yeah. Let's assume that you're going to be ethical about this. There's the entire internet full of websites, and most of them have some big security issues. But if you're starting out and you want to be a good boy or girl about how you're doing this, you're not going to start out by just going out and hacking various large websites or small ones. So you decide that you want to set up a website at home. It becomes a real pain in the butt, because if you really want to test on a real web application, you have to do all the stuff that somebody setting up a web application does. You have to get your server set up, get your web server set up, get your database installed, get your code running. And the point is, you just want to learn about web application security. You don't want to worry about all this other system administration stuff that's probably what you used to do and why you got into security to avoid doing. There are some training applications out there. OWASP has a couple projects. They have this thing called WebGoat that's been around for years. There's another thing called Vicnum that's come around the past year or two. There's a couple other projects in the works. There's some independent projects. There's the Damn Vulnerable Web Application Project, which I think recently got acquired by somebody, but still available. Mutilidae, Bad Store, it's another thing which used to be freely available. I think you have to jump through some hoops to get now. There's also a couple of projects that are a little bit similar to what we're doing. I'm going to skip over those for right now. I'll come back to those in Q&A if people want to talk about similarities and differences. But regardless of what you're doing, if you're trying to learn, or if you're trying to test a web app scanner, or if you're trying to test code review tools, or if you're trying to test out a WAF, you have the same problem over and over again. If you want to test something that simulates real web applications, it's a lot of work because you have to set up a real web application. So we're trying to solve a couple of problems here. We're looking for something where we could find web applications with vulnerabilities, where we can test manual attack techniques, i.e. the learning how to hack web apps, the tick or 1=1 stuff, but also web application scanners, also source code analysis tools, And also in the same environment, be able to look at bad code and possibly modify and fix the code, and also have people do forensic stuff, see evidence left by attackers, see log files, see what happens when you put up a WAF or an IDS in front of it, see what happens when it's in training mode, see what happens when it's in blocking mode, test out a lot of different things. So we're proposing the following solution. Myself and this guy, Chuck Willis, who unfortunately can't be here today, although he was the original person behind this in this talk, we're basically trying to do this thing, which we're now calling the OWASP Broken Web Application Project. And the goal is to assemble a set of broken open source applications all in one place and figure out all the configuration headaches for you so you don't have to do it. Then we're going to put them all in a virtual machine and try and peddle OWASP if they want to buy off on the idea. Conveniently, recently, in the past week or so, this has become an official OWASP project. So yay, they've bought it so far. Base software, we're running on Ubuntu. We basically, for ease of use, have decided to not worry about having any sort of graphical user environment. Because when you start installing a lot of different web applications and a lot of different stacks, obviously this is all based off of Linux and Apache to some degree, but you have different databases and different programming languages, and down the road we may expand it to do even more things. You have a lot of stuff that you have to install. Currently, because there's no GUI, you have to do horrible things like manage from the command line. You know what, though? If you're the average user of this, hopefully you won't ever see it. You'll just boot it up in the VM, and then you'll go to a web interface and be able to take everything from there. But if you are one of the people who wants to go further, mess with it, install other things, modify the VM, this is basically what you've got available. So far, in the current working build that we've got, which is basically a beta version, we have a bunch of the things that I've mentioned which have propped up in different projects. We pretty much got all of them in one place. So we've got WebGoat, Vicnum, Utilidae, Damn Vulnerable Web Application, OAuth CSRF Guard, a bunch more stuff. We have something that Mandiant did for our own internal training, which is a form in Struts. We've come up with a couple forms in other languages. We're looking for more. I mean, ultimately, what we want, and one of the reasons that I'm here announcing this and talking about this, is we really want to just start compiling a ton of things and get it all working together so that people want to come and learn or test stuff. They can pretty much just fire this up and go in whatever direction you want. So if you want to do Java, we'll have it. If you want to do PHP, we'll have it. If you want to do .NET, we'll have it, and so on. We also, in addition to doing the test applications, are looking at the idea of doing old real applications. Most of the projects that have done this before have either done a test application or two, or they've done a real application or two. We're trying to cover all the bases. One of the things that Chuck and I have done in our day jobs with research is, and one of the reasons people are like, why are you using something that's that old? Well, first off, it has holes big enough you can drive a truck through it. So for a learning environment, it's got a lot of stuff that's easy to track down. I mean, right now, people are like, hey, there was a vulnerability in that last version of WordPress or that last version of something else. Yes, there was. It was probably one vulnerability, and that one vulnerability triggered a point release. If you go back to something this old, there's lots of stuff to learn on. But the other neat stuff about going back to really old applications is if you follow a specific code tree, and this is kind of getting to a little side branch here, you're doing some code analysis tools where you're looking and seeing how good your hit rate is on detecting problems with code. Theoretically, if you're following the same code branch down without adding new features, just doing bug fixes, you should see an increase in your stats. So one of the reasons we're plugging some real old apps in here is the fact that we want to be able to do versions of these apps as well as time goes on. So when you're testing source code analysis tools and the like, you can see the progression and you can see if your tool actually shows it getting better and if that actually correlates with what was happening with the real code. Again, we have a bunch more that we're looking at and planning, and if people have like, oh, you got to do this one, it's great, please suggest it to us. So what are some of the challenges we face? Well, it takes a lot of organization. So right now, it's just being a small group of people. There are several other tool sets out there already, most of which are attack CDs. There's the OS Live CD. And this is only the web AppSec world. Obviously, there are things like Backtrack for network testing. But there's the OS Live CD, there's Samurai, a couple others. And I know a lot of the people working on these. In most cases, it's one or two guys who put in a lot of time. And not that I'm against putting in a lot of time, but ideally, one of the things we want to do is figure out a way to make it so that more people can collaborate, which will allow for a wider breadth of applications to be available. Because if we start maintaining 5 different programming languages and 2 different application stacks and running a couple different web servers, it's going to make one person's head explode. So one of the things we want to do is find a way to expand this out, organize, get more people involved. We want to work on documentation and the education piece. If you've ever pulled up WebGoat or something else, you'll know that it's one of those things where you can only